Have you ever felt trapped inside your own mind? Like something dark had taken control and you couldn't find your way back? Have you ever been so broken that even the people who loved you gave up trying to save you? There was a man who lived among the dead. Not because he wanted to, but because no chain could hold him. No prison could contain him. No human strength could calm him. The townspeople whispered his name in fear. They tried everything: iron shackles, stone walls, armed guards. Nothing worked. So they did what people do when they run out of hope. They abandoned him. But across the lake, someone was coming. Someone the darkness feared. Someone who saw him not as a monster, but as a man worth crossing a storm to reach. This is the story of the man no one could chain, and the day everything changed. Welcome to our channel. Please subscribe, like and share for more uncovering of hidden truths from history and scriptural tells. Night swallowed the cliffs of Gerasene. Wind howled through the tombs like the breath of something ancient and cruel. A man ran barefoot across jagged stones, blood trailing behind him. His screams split the darkness, not from pain, but from voices. Voices that weren't his own. He clawed at his skin, trying to tear them out. But they lived deeper than flesh. Deeper than bone. He stumbled, gasping, and his foot struck something cold. Metal. A broken chain. It had belonged to him once. The sixth attempt to bind him. The sixth failure. He stared at the shattered iron, and for just a moment, one fragile, impossible moment, a memory flickered. A woman's face. A child's laughter. A name he used to answer to. "Who am I now?" he whispered into the wind. The voices answered with laughter. But far across the dark water, something was moving. A boat. Carrying the only one the darkness truly feared. And the storm was already trying to stop him. The Sea of Galilee erupted without warning. Waves like claws tore at the boat, dragging it toward the depths. The disciples fought the oars, terror flooding their faces. Water crashed over the sides. Thunder split the sky. "We're going to die." Peter screamed over the roar. But Jesus stood at the bow, eyes fixed on the distant shore. Calm. Unmoved. He raised his hand. "Peace. Be still." The wind collapsed. The waves flattened. Silence fell like a blanket over the lake. The disciples stared, breathless. Hearts pounding. "What kind of man is this?" Andrew whispered. "Even the wind obeys him." But Jesus didn't answer. His gaze remained locked on the dark cliffs ahead, on the region everyone avoided. The place where death lived among the living. He murmured, barely audible, "He's waiting." Peter followed his gaze. "Who's waiting?" Jesus didn't respond. But somewhere across the water, in the tombs of Gerasene, something screamed back into the night. In the city, villagers huddled near their fires, speaking in hushed, fearful voices. An elder stared into the flames. "We tried everything. Iron shackles. Stone chains. Guards with clubs." A younger man shook his head. He tore through them like paper. Broke the bones of 3 men who tried to hold him down. A woman whispered, "He bleeds when he runs through the stones. But he doesn't stop. It's like, he's not even in there anymore." The elder's voice dropped. "Let the dead keep him. He's no longer ours." Silence stretched. The fire crackled. Then a small boy asked, his voice trembling, "But what if he can still hear us? What if he's still in there somewhere?" No one answered. Because deep down, they feared the boy was right. That somewhere beneath the madness, the man they once knew was still screaming for help. But the man in the tombs heard far more than their whispers. He heard the legion. And they never stopped talking. Inside his mind, darkness stretched like endless corridors. 1,000 voices overlapped, twisting, mocking, controlling. "You belong to us. No one will ever come for you. Not even God crosses this cursed land." The man tried to cover his ears, but the voices came from within. He slammed his head against a stone, desperate to silence them. Blood ran warm down his face. The voices laughed. He screamed, "Stop." But they didn't stop. They never stopped. Until, suddenly, all the voices went silent. Not quiet. Silent. The man's breath caught. His heart hammered. Something had changed. Something in the air. Something in the unseen. The legion felt it before he did. And for the first time in years, the man felt something he'd forgotten existed. Fear. Not his fear. Theirs. Because something holy had just stepped onto the shore. And the darkness knew what it meant. The rescue had begun. Jesus stepped out of the boat onto the rocky beach. The moment his foot touched the ground, the wind shifted. The air grew heavy. The disciples climbed out behind him, uneasy. John glanced around. "Rabbi, this place feels wrong." Peter gripped his sword. "Cursed." Before Jesus could respond, a scream tore through the cliffs above them. Not human. Not animal. Something between. The disciples spun toward the sound. A figure appeared at the top of the ridge, wild hair, torn skin, chains rattling from his wrists and ankles. His body trembled violently. Then he charged. Full speed. Down the hill. Straight toward them. The disciples stumbled backward. "Jesus, move." But Jesus didn't move. Didn't flinch. Didn't run. He simply stood there, eyes locked on the man racing toward him. The disciples braced for impact. The ground shook with the man's footsteps. 5 seconds. 3. 1. The collision of worlds was about to happen. And nothing would ever be the same. As the man reached Jesus, something impossible happened. His legs collapsed beneath him. As if an invisible force had slammed him down. He hit the ground hard, gasping, writhing. But his knees were bowing. His body was worshipping even as his mouth screamed in fury. "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God?" The disciples froze. How did he know Jesus' name? How did he know who he was? Jesus knelt slowly, his eyes soft. Gentle. Unflinching. "What is your name?" The man's face twisted. 100 expressions flickered across it. Rage, fear, pleading, hatred. His mouth opened. But the voice that came out wasn't his. It was many. "Legion, for we are many." The air thickened. Birds scattered from the cliffs. Animals fled. The ground beneath them trembled. Peter whispered, "Jesus, what is this?" But Jesus didn't answer. He simply stared at the man, seeing past the legion, past the darkness, to the soul trapped beneath. "Legion, for we are many." The words hung in the air like smoke. Heavy. Suffocating. The man's body shook violently. Sweat poured from his face. His eyes darted between clarity and chaos. Between the voices, a whisper broke through. His voice. The real one. "Please, don't leave me." The legion snarled back through his throat. "He is ours. We claimed him." Jesus' voice was calm but absolute. "Not anymore." The spirits shrieked. The man convulsed. The disciples stepped back, terrified. Peter gripped his sword. "Jesus, what do we do?" But Jesus didn't respond to Peter. He kept his eyes on the man, on the human buried beneath the darkness. And then the legion did something unexpected. They begged. "If you cast us out, send us into the herd of pigs." The disciples turned. On the hillside nearby, a massive herd grazed, hundreds of them, restless and uneasy. Jesus said nothing. But his silence was answer enough. The spirits were already searching for another way out. And they had found it. The spirits begged louder. "Send us into the pigs." The disciples exchanged horrified glances. This wasn't just an exorcism. This was war. Spiritual. Cosmic. Terrifying. The pigs on the hillside grew agitated. Snorting. Circling. As if they sensed what was coming. The man's body arched backward. His mouth opened wide. A scream began building in his chest, not his scream, but theirs. Jesus stood. His voice was quiet but carried the weight of eternity. "Go." One word. Final. Absolute. The man's body convulsed. Power surged through him like lightning. His eyes rolled back. Then. The voices were gone. All of them. The silence was deafening. The man gasped, collapsing forward onto his hands. Tears streamed down his face. His breath came in ragged sobs. For the first time in years, his thoughts were his own. But on the hillside, chaos had just begun. The legion had found their new prison. And the pigs knew it. A wave of demonic force slammed into the herd. The pigs shrieked, a sound no animal should make. Their bodies jerked. Foam poured from their mouths. Then they ran. Hundreds of them. All at once. Toward the cliff. The ground shook beneath their stampede. Dust clouds rose like smoke. Their screams pierced the air. The disciples stared in horror. "They're going over," John began. But it was already happening. One by one. Dozens at a time. The pigs hurled themselves off the cliff and plunged into the sea below. The water swallowed them. Bubbles rose. Then silence. The herdsmen who had been watching from a distance turned and ran, sprinting toward the city, screaming as they went. The disciples stood frozen. Breathless. Peter turned to Jesus. What just happened? But Jesus wasn't looking at the sea. He was looking at the man. The man who, for the first time in years, was sitting still. Calm. Free. And breathing like he had just been born again. The man sat on the ground. Still. Silent. Calm. His chest rose and fell with slow, steady breaths. His hands, once used to claw and tear, now rested gently in his lap. One of the disciples draped a cloak over his shoulders. He touched the fabric like he'd forgotten what cloth felt like. He lifted his hands to his face. Felt his own skin. His own tears. I can hear my own thoughts again, he whispered. His voice cracked with wonder. With relief. Jesus knelt beside him, smiling. Your story is not over. The man looked at him, eyes filled with gratitude and confusion. I don't understand. Why did you come for me? Jesus placed a hand on his shoulder. Because you were never beyond reach. The man wept. Not from pain. But from freedom. For the first time in years, he felt human again. But in the distance, voices rose. Angry. Afraid. The villagers were coming. And they were not coming to celebrate. They were coming to drive Jesus away. The crowd arrived in a rush, merchants, elders, mothers pulling children close. Their faces twisted with fear and anger. They saw the pigs gone. The sea stained with death. They saw the man sitting calmly, clothed, in his right mind. They saw Jesus. And they were terrified. One man shouted, "What have you done? You destroyed our livelihood." Another cried, "Your power is too dangerous. Leave our region." The healed man stared at them, confused. Hurt. Don't you see? I'm free. After all these years, I'm free. But they didn't care about his freedom. They cared about their pigs. Their profit. Their control. An elder stepped forward. We want you gone. Now. Jesus said nothing. He simply looked at them with a mixture of sorrow and understanding. The healed man's heart sank. These were his people. His city. And they were choosing fear over a miracle. Jesus turned toward the boat. The disciples followed. But the healed man's choice was just beginning. And it would break him before it made him. Jesus walked toward the boat. The healed man scrambled to his feet and ran after him. Wait, he called out, breathless. Jesus turned. The man fell at his feet, gripping his robe. Let me go with you. Please. Don't leave me here. His voice cracked with desperation. The fear of being left behind again. The fear of being alone with people who feared him. Jesus knelt, lifting the man's face gently. No. The word hit like a stone. You must go home. Go back to your people. Tell them what God has done for you. Tears streamed down the man's face. But they don't want me. They're afraid of me. Jesus smiled softly. That's why you must go. They need to see that freedom is real. That mercy is real. That I am real. The man stared at him, torn between safety and destiny. Leaving with Jesus felt like rescue. Staying felt like abandonment. But Jesus squeezed his shoulder. You are my witness now. The man nodded slowly. His heart breaking. His purpose being born. The man watched the boat disappear across the water. Then he turned toward the city. His city. The place that had abandoned him. He walked slowly through the streets. Barefoot. Clothed. Human again. People hid behind doors. Mothers pulled children inside. Merchants turned their backs. He stopped in the center of the marketplace. It's me, he said quietly. I'm free. Silence. Then whispers. Confusion. Fear. An elderly woman stepped forward, squinting at him. Her voice trembled. Is it really you? He nodded, tears filling his eyes. She gasped. She spoke his name. His real name. The one he hadn't heard in years. He broke. Fell to his knees. Wept. Because someone remembered. Someone saw him as more than a monster. Slowly, others gathered. Watching. Listening. Uncertain. What happened to you? A young man asked. The healed man looked up. His voice steady now. I was lost. But someone came for me. And for the first time, he began to tell his story. The only weapon darkness cannot silence. Testimony. He began speaking. Slowly at first. Then with growing strength. I was lost in a darkness that wasn't mine. Voices filled my head. I couldn't escape them. Couldn't silence them. The crowd leaned in, captivated. I hurt people. I hurt myself. You tried to chain me. But the chains broke. Not because I was strong. Because I was broken. He paused, his voice softening. You gave up on me. I don't blame you. I gave up on myself. Tears glistened in some eyes. But then, someone crossed the lake. Someone who didn't fear me. Someone who saw me, not as a demon, but as a man. Who? Someone whispered. Jesus. The one you sent away. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. He spoke to the darkness inside me. And it left. All of it. I am free because he came for me. The crowd stood silent. Some skeptical. Some moved. But one thing was undeniable. The man they once feared now spoke with clarity, peace, and hope. And his story was just beginning to spread. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. The man traveled. Not back to the tombs. But forward. Into the Decapolis, 10 cities scattered across the region. Everywhere he went, he told the story. In marketplaces. At wells. In synagogues. I was the man no one could chain. But Jesus set me free. His name became known. Not for his madness. But for his message. Mothers who once hid their children now brought them to hear him speak. Men who mocked him now asked questions. And slowly, something miraculous happened. The region that had once begged Jesus to leave, now longed for him to return. Because of one man's testimony. One man's willingness to stay when he wanted to leave. One man's scars turned into a mission. People whispered, the man who once lived among the dead now speaks life. But the greatest moment was still ahead. The day Jesus would return. And the man would see him again. And this time, thousands would be waiting. Months later, a rumor spread through the Decapolis. Jesus is coming back. Crowds gathered at the shore. Not to drive him away. But to welcome him. Thousands came. Families. Fishermen. Merchants. The sick. The curious. And standing at the front, clothed, calm, and radiant with purpose, was the man Jesus had set free. The boat appeared on the horizon. The crowd buzzed with anticipation. When Jesus stepped onto the shore, the people erupted in cheers. Not fear. Not anger. Celebration. Jesus walked through the crowd, greeting them, healing them, teaching them. Then his eyes found the man. They locked gazes across the crowd. No words were spoken. None were needed. Jesus smiled. The man smiled back, tears streaming down his face. Because the man who had once been abandoned was now a leader. A witness. A living miracle. And the city that had rejected Jesus was now ready to hear him. All because one man refused to stay silent about what God had done. The final revelation was about to unfold. Jesus stood before the massive crowd and spoke. Do you remember the man who could not be chained? A ripple of gasps spread through the people. Yes. Everyone remembered. Jesus pointed to the healed man standing nearby. Look at him now. The crowd turned. Stared. Murmured. Some wept. Jesus continued. He was not just rescued. He was sent. His suffering became his calling. His chains became his testimony. His scars became his ministry. The man stepped forward, his voice strong and clear. If the darkness could not keep me, he said, it cannot keep you. The words landed like thunder. People pressed forward. Questions poured out. Hope ignited. Because they saw the proof. The impossible made possible. The lost made found. Jesus looked at the man one last time. No words. Just a nod. The man understood. His story wasn't just about what Jesus did for him. It was about what Jesus could do through him. And that story would echo for generations. Because the man no one could chain became the voice no one could silence. 6 powerful, shareable life lessons. Your identity is stronger than your chains. Circumstances can distort you, but they cannot define you. Even hell cannot stop the rescue heaven begins. If Jesus is coming for you, no storm can block his path. People may give up on you, God never does. Human rejection is not divine rejection. Your worst story can become someone else's freedom. Testimony is the weapon darkness cannot silence. Healing doesn't erase your past, it redeems it. God turns scars into assignments. You don't need to go with Jesus to be used by him. Where you are can be the exact place God intends to reach through you.